Mendelian Genetics. We are going to use Gregor Mendel's laws. Those are the laws of segregation and independent assortment to discuss the role of meiosis and define problems, perhaps, or even ask questions about how these things occur and why things turn out the way that they do. Punnett squares are often used to determine probability. Like the probability can be used to determine the possibility of getting a specific genotype or the genes that are involved. This is especially helpful when you're looking at more than just 2 genes at a time. We want to know the probability of, maybe getting a blonde-haired, blue-eyed child. So perform a monohybrid cross for each individual gene and then determine the odds of getting that genotype in a fraction form, and then multiply that by the odds to determine the likelihood of getting this, etc. So we want to use probability to determine what our genotype options are going to be. The Punnett squares were really good at being able to give us the probability for phenotype, like what's going to physically be displayed. But you could go back and look at those dihybrid crosses and see that there's multiple different combinations of genotype. Just because all of those 9 boxes were, purple and tall doesn't mean they all have the same combination of alleles for being purple and tall. Some of them could be homozygous dominant, some of them could be heterozygous for either of those genes, etc. Here I'm going to work on an example. We want to know the example for probability in genotype. So Erica has a genotype of big A, big B, little c, for 3 different genes. And Carlos has the genotype heterozygous for A, heterozygous for B, heterozygous for C, for those same 3 genes. So we want to determine the probability of Erica and Carlos's child will have heterozygous for all 3 types of genes. Okay, the first thing we need to do is determine what the probability for each of these guys is going to be independently. So we want to do all the A's and then all the B's and all the C's. All right, so let's just do Erica up top. So ladies are going to go here. There's Erica for A, here's Erica for B, and here's Erica for C. And then we're going to do Carlos along the side. So he's heterozygous for A, heterozygous for B, and heterozygous for C. And remembering, we're wanting to know what the probability is that they're going to have an offspring who is also, heterozygous for everybody. Who's got the genotype that's like daddy, apparently? All right, so we're going to do individual crosses here. All right, so I hope you pause the tape and you can fill in your Punnett squares. And here we have the Punnett square probability in genotypes. For now, we don't even know what the phenotype is. Like, we don't even know what we're talking about here. It could be like, crow's feet or unibrow or whatever. We don't know what they're talking about. We're just looking at these genotype combinations, all right? And so this is how I would figure out this probability, to determine the probability that Erica and Carlos would have a child who would be heterozygous for all 3 genes. We want to go here and see what the probability of the offspring is that they're going to be heterozygous. So here I have heterozygous. So half of these guys are going to have the probability of being heterozygous. Same thing here. We have half of them, half of the offspring have the potential of being heterozygous for B. And here we have these guys, also half have the potential of being for heterozygous for C. And so to find the probability of those combinations, we're going to multiply them together. So the probability that they will be, its offspring will be heterozygous for A, B, and C. We're going to multiply half times 1/2 times 1/2, and that's going to give you, does anybody know? It'll give you 1/8 or 0.125. So the probability of them having a child with this combination, you're going to figure out what you're looking for and multiply them all together. So 1/2 or 1/2 or 1/2 or 0.5 You could also do it right, because that's also half. 0.5 times 0.5 times 0.5, and you're going to get 1/8, or 0.125. And to turn that into a percentage, it's 12.5%, or 12.5%. So there's a 12.5% chance that Erica and Carlos will have a baby that is heterozygous for all three of those genes. And here are the probabilities for all of the genotypes in better handwriting than what you're seeing Ms. Hoskins write out for you. If you'd like to copy that down, please check your answer.